Okay, after understanding about the money, now the next topic that we have to understand is banking. Banking we all understand in the common term, it is simply depositing the money into a bank or taking a loan from a bank or using other services provided by a bank. But technically if we have to define banking, banking is a process of accepting deposits from the public which are withdrawable on demand. That is, there the demand deposit. Yes, in the previous video we discussed about the demand deposit and term deposits. Withdrawable on demand by check, order or otherwise for the purpose of lending or investing. Okay, these are the important you can say definition important words for defining banking or for understanding banking. Banking is simply a process in which an organization or an institution accepts the deposit from the public. This deposit is withdrawable on demand, means whenever the public wants, it can withdraw its deposits with the particular organization. By check, check you all know, which can be used for making payments. Order means that suppose you are withdrawing the money from through a withdrawal form, that is by order. Or otherwise may include the modern services like internet banking or drawing through an ATM. And the purpose of accepting this deposit was to give it as a loan or to invest it somewhere, so that the earning can be earned on that, or you can say returns can be earned on that particular deposit. So these are three important things that you have to include in the definition of banking: accepting deposit from the public, withdrawable on demand by check, order or otherwise, and for the purpose of lending or investing, means that the money is not kept idle with the organization or with the bank. Any institution that does this, that performs these functions is known as a bank. Okay, so this particular definition of the bank is applicable to all the banks, all the commercial banks. Now, after understanding the basic meaning of banking, we have to understand the types of banks. See, there are two types of banks that we have to study: the central bank and commercial banks. Okay, central bank is apex bank or the head of the banks, or you can say it is the head of the financial system of an economy, while all the commercial banks are the banks which are dealing with the public and performing the function mentioned under the definition of banking, like say PNB, SBI, Allahabad Bank, Bank of Baroda. All these are commercial banks, while the Central Bank of India is the Reserve Bank of India, and it is the apex bank. Apex means topmost, at the top level, and is head of all banks. Means all the other banks, all the commercial banks will work under the supervision of the Reserve Bank. So if you have to define the central bank, you can define it as a apex institution or the topmost institution of an economy, which is the head of the financial system, or it is the head of all the banks. We'll first discuss about the central bank. First, try to understand the meaning of central bank and its functions. So, as you know that RBI is the central bank and it is governing or taking most, or you can say all the financial decisions of the economy. Like demonetization was also undertaken by the Central Bank of India. That decision was also announced by the central bank, and all the working of the financial system depend on the central bank. You must also be knowing that the central bank is not only the head of the banks but also of the share market and all other financial markets in the economy. So now we will move on to the functions of the central bank. See, when we are studying these functions of the central bank or even the function of money, if you are asked in a question, it is better to mention them in points, right? Means each and every function itself can be divided into 2 or 3 points. The first and foremost function of the central bank is, it is the bank of issue. Issue here means issue of the currency. It is the bank which can print the currency of an economy. It has the exclusive rights. Exclusive means no other bank or no other institution in the economy has this particular right. Like you must be seeing for a telecast of a match exclusively on Star Sports. So it means that it will be telecasted only on Star Sports. So exclusive means exclusive right or unique right of the central bank to print the currency of the economy. None other organization has this particular right. When you have to explain this, then you have to explain it, mention all these things, and it prints the currency on behalf of the government. On behalf of the central government, or you can say both central bank and the central government will together decide how much currency is to be printed in an economy. Then just understand one technical thing also can be understood here, that is this function of the central bank converts the monetary liabilities of the government into non-monetary liabilities. Actually, when I am saying the conversion of monetary liabilities to non-monetary liabilities, first you have to understand that currency is also the liability for the government, because government is backing it, government is giving its promise, or you can say the central bank is giving its promise on the currency note. And if you return any currency note, then RBI has to take it back. Like even if in the demonetization, or even if you have a worn out note, currency note, then also the RBI will take it back, right? So it is a non-monetary liability of the government. Like on the each and every currency note, you will find written, I, the governor of RBI, promise to pay a sum of rupees, whatever currency note it is. So it means that the promise becomes the liability for the government. But it is what type of liability? A non-monetary liability. Non-monetary because no one will come and ask for the government to exchange it in, for some commodity. They can use it in the economy. While monetary liabilities are those, or you can say non-monetary liability is the currency issued by the bank and it is not to be paid. While monetary liabilities are any, suppose the government has to pay say rupees 5 lakh to a firm, say to firm A. Suppose this company has undertaken the contract of building a road on behalf of the government or from the government, and government has to make the payment. If there is shortage of the money with the government, what government can do? So first understand, it is a monetary liability. It has to be paid. If there is shortage of money with the government with the permission or with the consideration of the Reserve Bank can issue or print new currency and pay this liability, right? So now when this liability is paid, again that 5 lakh rupees issued by the bank is a liability. But what type of liability? It is a non-monetary liability because it is not to be paid back. So this is how this function helps the government to convert its monetary liabilities into non-monetary liabilities. When you are explaining this point, you can mention this much only. You can simply write that it helps the government to convert its monetary liabilities into non-monetary liabilities by printing currency whenever there is shortage of money with the government. Then second point is, it is banker to the government. Banker to the government means that the RBI, as we maintain our accounts with the commercial banks, similarly the governments maintain their accounts with the Reserve Bank. The central government has its account with the Reserve Bank, or the government's treasury, which you must have heard that government has a treasury which is the reserve of the money with the government, that is also held by the Reserve Bank. Government can take loans from the Reserve Bank So you can say that the Reserve Bank acts as a banker to the government. So as a banker to the government, first of all, the government can deposit its money with the RBI. Secondly, the government can take loans or borrow from the central bank. Third, the government can take advice from the central bank. Right? So these are the three things that you need to mention when you are explaining the function of banker to the government. First thing, that government can deposit its surplus money with the Reserve Bank, and Reserve Bank also holds the government treasury. Secondly, government can take the loans in case there is shortage of money with the government, and government can also seek advice from the central bank regarding the economic matters or economic policies of the economy. Then the third function of the central bank is banker's bank. Banker's bank means it is the banker to the government. Means all, like the government, all the commercial banks also hold their accounts with the Reserve Bank. When we are talking about the banker's bank function, first of all commercial banks, they hold the account with the RBI or the central bank. Secondly, they can seek advice from the central bank, or you can say that central bank will regulate them. Regulate means all the policies, all the rules for these banks will be made by the central bank. They can borrow from the central bank, and also the central bank acts as a center of settlement, or in some of the books you would find it written as it is the clearing house function. This clearing house function may be given as a separate function in some of the books. What does it mean? That the RBI or the central bank is the claim settler between the commercial banks. For understanding this, you can simply understand it with the help of an example. Suppose you have an ATM card of SBI, debit card of SBI. It means that you have the account with SBI and you have deposited your money with the State Bank of India or the SBI. But you withdraw say 15,000 rupees from an ATM belonging to say PNB. So now just see, the money which you had deposited was with the SBI, but you have withdrawn it from the Punjab National Bank. So it means that SBI will have to give 15,000 rupees to the PNB. So what is done is, from the central bank, you know that now all these things are online. Okay, they all are done automatically through the computer systems, through the databases. Automatically what will happen, SBI's account will be debited, SBI's account will be debited by 15,000 and PNB's account will be credited by 15,000, or you can simply say that 15,000 will be transferred from the account of SBI into the account of PNB. This is the clearing house function or the claim settlement function of the Reserve Bank of India, so that the banks need not exchange the money. Then the next function is it is the lender of last resort. This is the fourth function, the lender of last resort. Resort means last option. Means when the commercial bank is not able to borrow money from any source, or it is having some problem of cash, shortage of cash, then RBI will always give the money or provide the money or credit to the commercial bank. Means RBI will never deny to any requirement of the commercial bank, because commercial bank itself is acting on behalf of the central bank. It is being regulated by the central bank. Central bank is the one who is governing them. Secondly, if any commercial bank is not able to honor its promise, then the image not only of that commercial bank would be spoiled, but of the whole financial system of an economy will be spoiled. Like suppose a person had deposited say 50 lakh rupees in a commercial bank and wants to withdraw them, but the bank is not able to return it. So not only the image of that bank will be spoiled, but the whole image of the whole financial system will be spoiled. Thus, the RBI always backs with its responsibility of lending the money as a last provider or the last resort to the commercial banks. So when you are mentioning explaining this point, then you need to mention this, all these things. Next function is the custodian of foreign exchange. Custodian means that it is the holder, or it keeps the reserve of all foreign exchange. Foreign exchange simply means foreign currencies. So RBI as the custodian of foreign exchange will hold all the reserves of the foreign currency, or you can simply understand that any foreign currency which comes into the economy ultimately has to go to the Reserve Bank. See, take an example. Suppose a person has earned $100 in India, say through Google or say through any other source of income, but he cannot use these $100 in India. So what he would do? He would go to a commercial bank and get them exchanged in Indian rupee. Now what the responsibility of a commercial bank is to deposit this money to the Reserve Bank of India. From whatever source it has come, it may have come into the economy, but ultimately it will go to the Reserve Bank of India. That's why it is known as the custodian of foreign exchange. Okay, then the next function is controller of credit. Okay, or the credit control function of the Reserve Bank. Again, see, this is the most important function of the Reserve Bank or the central bank of an economy, because this function helps the economy to run in a smooth manner. And under this function, we will have various policies which are known as the monetary policies. Means the monetary policies are the tools by which the RBI performs its function of controller of credit. We'll talk about it, what control of credit means or what actually this means. First, we can just understand these monetary policies. You must have done them in class 11th as well. First are the quantitative methods. And then we have the qualitative methods. Again, just you have to just recall from your class 11 studies that you have already done these monetary policies, and they are used in case of inflation and deflation. Like inflation means when demand is more than the supply, and deflation means when demand is less than the supply. So these situations can be controlled by the Reserve Bank through its monetary policies. These are the two instruments, or you can say two categories of monetary policies, and they are divided into many policies. Quantitative method means that they can be expressed in numbers, they have numerical values, and qualitative method means that they do not have any numerical values, they cannot be expressed in numbers. The first quantitative method is the bank rate. Second is the legal reserve ratio. Third is OMO, open market operations, and fourth is marginal requirement. While here we have is this selective credit control or SCC, or also called as credit rationing. And second is moral suasion. Okay, so these are 6 important instruments of the monetary policy. 4 are here in the quantitative methods and 2 are there in the qualitative methods. Now we will in detail understand that what these instruments mean and how they can be used to control the credit in the economy. Now just for understanding these, we just have to recall, or we just have to once again revive that how the economy is working. See, we have the central bank, RBI on the top, then we have the commercial bank, and then we have the public of the economy or people of the economy. Okay, so RBI through those policies controls the working of the commercial banks, which in turn controls the behavior of the public or controls the demand of the economy, or you can say the purchasing power in the economy. Like suppose if we are talking about, say, in an economy, situation of inflation is being observed. So what does it mean? That demand is more than the supply. So the idea is to reduce the demand, or it can be corrected by reducing the demand, which can be done by 2 ways. First, creating a shortage of cash and shortage of credit, or you can say reducing the availability of cash and reducing the availability of credit. Cash would control the cash purchases, while credit would control the credit purchases. Very often the credit one is more effective because the people who are holding the cash, they would certainly be able to fulfill their demands. So now first we will talk about the bank rate, and you have to remember this how the economy is working, only then you can understand the various instruments. First is the bank rate. First understand what bank rate is. It is the rate at which the central bank lends money to the commercial bank, because the central bank is having the authority to print the currency. So obviously the commercial bank will have to approach the central bank for borrowing any form of currency. Now just understand, suppose the bank rate was 4%. So it means that RBI is lending money to the commercial bank at the rate of 4%, and the commercial bank itself is a profit making unit, so it might be giving the loan to the public at the rate of 6%, 2% being its profit. Now suppose inflation is observed in the economy, so what RBI will do, it will increase the bank rate. Suppose now the bank rate has been increased to 6%. In turn the commercial bank will need to increase the rate of loans to 8%. So what does this make? This makes the credit more expensive. Or you can say it makes the credit more dear. Now what would happen? The credit purchases would decline. It would lead to fall in the credit purchases. Say for example, a person was planning to change his car, buy a new car and sell the old car. He thought that the rate of interest is only 6% in the economy, but suppose when he reaches the bank, he comes to know that now the rate has increased to 8%. So there might be, suppose there are 10,000 such people at a particular time in the economy, maybe out of them 8,000 or 6,000 do not change their car at that period of time due to the high rate of interest. So this is how the bank rate, if you are asked to explain that how bank rate is used to control inflation or maybe deflation. In deflation it would be other way around, that is reduction in the, if there is deflation in the economy, it would be other way around, the credit bank rate would be reduced, which would lead to credit becoming cheaper and more credit purchases in the economy. So if you are asked to explain this particular bank rate, first you have to mention its definition, that is, it is the rate at which the central bank lends money to the commercial bank. And if it is asked in how it is used to check inflation, then you will explain all these things, that in case of inflation RBI will increase the bank rate, leading to credit becoming more expensive or dear, and leading to decline in the credit purchases, and thereby controlling inflation. And deflation, it would be other way around. Then next instrument is legal reserve ratio, or it is abbreviated as LRR. Legal reserve ratio is that part of deposits which cannot be given as loan. Okay, or you can say that it is that part or that percentage of the deposits which are being made into the commercial bank which it cannot give as loan. Or you can say it is a sort of reserve to be maintained from the deposits received by the bank. Suppose you say that say LRR is 20% and a person deposits say 1000 rupees into the bank. So out of this 1000, 20% of it, that is rupees 200, will be LRR or legal reserve ratio, and bank can give only the remaining amount, that is 800 rupees as loan. Right? So legal reserve ratio is essentially the part of the total deposits which is to be kept as reserve and it cannot be given as loan. This is how it works. If it is 20%, the amount deposited, 20% will be kept as the LRR and the remaining amount can be given as loan. Now just understand that this legal reserve ratio is also divided into two sub ratios, which are CRR and SLR. CRR stands for cash reserve ratio and SLR stands for statutory liquidity ratio. Like I said that suppose LRR is 20%, so out of that 20% maybe 15% is CRR and 10% is SLR. Or you can say CRR plus SLR is equal to LRR. Now just understand what CRR means. It is that part of total deposits which is to be kept with the RBI in form of cash. Right? It means that whatever amount of CRR is being calculated by the bank, that has to be deposited with the account in the RBI only in the form of cash, not in any other form. While the statutory liquidity ratio is that part of deposits, that part of total deposits which the commercial bank will keep with itself in form of any current asset. Okay, or in form of any liquid asset, like it can be kept in the form of gold or in the form of government bonds or treasury bills, which can act just like cash. So the basic difference between these two is that CRR is to be kept with the Reserve Bank only in the form of cash, and statutory liquidity ratio is to be kept with the bank itself. It is actually to meet out the future needs of the bank. Suppose the people are coming to withdraw their money, so it can give from this reserve. And it can be maintained in form of any liquid asset, maybe in the form of gold, maybe in the form of bonds, maybe in the form of government treasury bills. So now what happens in case of inflation? Again remember, we have to understand the meaning of these instruments and how they are used to correct inflation or deflation. The question, whenever question will be asked, it would contain both the parts. You explain them and you explain how they are used to control inflation or deflation. So in the case of inflation, you must have understood what the bank would do. It would increase the legal reserve ratio, or you can say individually if you are explaining CRR, then it will increase the CRR and increase the SLR. What would it do? Again, it would reduce the ability of the banks to give loans. Like as we said, suppose a person deposited 1000 rupees and LRR was say 20%, it means equal to rupees 200. So rupees 800 can be given as loan. Now suppose Reserve Bank feels that there is inflation in the economy and now LRR is increased to say 30%. Now if a person is depositing 1000 rupees, then 300 will be kept as legal reserve ratio and only 700 can be given as loan. So if you are asked to explain this, you will write, you will mention this, that in case of inflation the LRR is increased, which reduces the ability of the banks to give loans and in turn reduces the loans in the economy and the credit purchases in the economy. Later we will also study that how LRR will affect the credit creation by the commercial banks. So it also reduces the credit creation of the banks. And always remember that LRR is nothing, it is the sum of CRR and SLR. Individually, LRR, if LRR is asked, so it means they are asking for both your SLR and CRR. Then the next instrument is OMO. It is open market operations. Open market operations means open market here basically refers to the capital market or the share or the securities market of the economy. Actually the RBI deals only with the government securities, not the private shares. So that's why we often refer to it only as the capital market, where RBI is buying and selling the government eligible securities. Or you can simply say OMO means buying and selling of government eligible securities or government bonds. Like say for example government treasury bills are a type of government security. There may be other bonds or debentures issued by the government. So buying and selling of these eligible government securities is known as OMO, open market operations. So if you have to define OMO, you will define it as buying and selling of the government eligible securities by the RBI or the central bank to the public or to the commercial banks. Means a security can also be sold to the public, but just understand RBI will not directly sell it to the public, it will sell it through the commercial bank. RBI never directly deals with the public. See what happens in case of inflation. In case of inflation, RBI would sell most of the securities. And what it would do to sell the securities, it will increase the rate of interest on these securities, or you can say the rate of return on these securities. Suppose right now the interest on the securities is say 6%. And RBI feels that there is a inflation in the economy, it will increase the interest rate to 8%. So might be the people think that it is better to buy the government security and earn the interest rather than to invest the money into some other private venture, right? So this is how it enhances the sale of the securities. Now just understand, when the government or the RBI will sell the security to the public, suppose security is of rupees 5 lakh, this is the value of the security lying with the RBI, and say person A buys it, or say any bank A buys it. So what will happen? Bank will pay 5 lakh rupees to the RBI, or the person will pay 5 lakh rupees to the RBI, and security will be given to the concerned person. So now this 5 lakh rupees will be blocked by the RBI, or you can say it will be kept by the RBI in its own reserve, and it will not allow it to flow into the economy. So now now again what happens, the availability of money is reduced in the economy, so this will also help to reduce the purchases in the economy and help to control the inflation. While in case of deflation, opposite will be done. There will be buying back of the securities. Buying back of securities, again what RBI will do, it will reduce the interest rate. Then what will people do? People will give the securities back to the RBI, and RBI will give them the money which they can use for purchases in the economy. So if you are asked this whole concept OMO, you have to first ensure that you explain the meaning, you tell the meaning of OMO, and then you also explain the working, how it works. Suppose it is inflation like this, if it is deflation, this is the other way around. Then the last quantitative method is marginal requirement. In some of the books you might find it as a qualitative method, but actually it is quantitative method because it can be expressed in numbers. Just understand the meaning of marginal requirement. It is the difference between the value of the asset which is kept as collateral. Collateral simply means as security. And the loan which can be taken against it. Say for example, if you have a land worth rupees 1 lakh rupees, and you go to the bank to take a loan against this particular asset, this particular property, then bank may give you a loan of rupees 80,000, but it will never give you a loan of. So this difference between the value, that is rupees 20,000, is the marginal requirement. You can define it as the difference between the value of the asset kept as collateral and the loan which can be taken against that particular asset, or which can be taken as loan against it. Now see what would happen if there is inflation in the economy. Then RBI will increase the marginal requirement. Like in the example which we were talking about, marginal requirement was 20%. So if you keep a land worth rupees 1 lakh, you are getting 80,000 as loan. Now suppose marginal requirement is increased to 40%. Again same piece of land, if you keep with the bank, you will get 60,000 as your loan amount. So some of the people might not take this particular risk of taking a loan of 60,000 against a property of 1 lakh rupees. And even if they take this loan, then also they will get 20,000 less. So it will again reduce the availability of credit in the economy and reduce the purchases of the economy and control the inflation. The second qualitative method is credit rationing or selective credit control. SCC stands for selective credit control. Okay, it simply means that the commercial bank can reject or approve a certain loan on the basis of the purpose of that particular loan. For example, say there is inflation in the economy and there are two people who come to take loan from the bank, person A and person B. Both want 5 lakh rupees as loan. A wants to use them for his farming purpose. B wants it to buy a car for himself. So bank can simply understand that this particular purpose of taking the loan would increase the productivity of the economy or would improve the production in the economy and would also lead to more employment. While this type of loan given by the bank would only lead to increase in the consumer demand or the demand of the buyers. So it can simply reject this loan and approve the other loan. So it means that selective credit control means that the bank can decide itself which loans to approve, or you can say grant, and which loans to reject depending on the condition of the economy. Then it might also be done by the RBI sector wise. Some of the books might explain this credit rationing being done sector wise. Sector wise it would be like say agricultural primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. Three sectors of the economy. Government may at a particular period of time may give more loans to a certain sector, right? So credit rationing can be explained both like this also, where the purpose of the loan can be seen, and sometimes the sector wise credit rationing is also done by the government. रुक दे यार, चेक कर ले एक बार. After studying the functions of the central bank, now we have to just study the function of the commercial bank. Few of the functions you already know. It accepts the deposit, then it grants loan to the public or to the businesses, and third is the most important function of the commercial bank, that is credit creation. Okay, these two are common functions of any commercial bank, which you can easily understand and explain, but this third function, according to your syllabus, this is the most important function, that is the credit creation of the by the commercial bank, and we have to study for this. What credit creation simply means is that the bank creates credit, and this credit can act as money. Okay, just remember that the right of issuing the currency lie exclusively with the Reserve Bank of India, that is the central bank. But the commercial bank also has a role to play in the economy by its credit creation. Okay, so it is also simply creating money, but that money will always be in the form of credit, or you can call it as bank money. We'll understand this topic in detail. It is an important topic, and it may be asked as a 6-mark question in your exams. That's why I told you that this is the most important function of the commercial bank. Just we have to first of all just understand two assumptions. This whole process of, I can call it as process of credit creation by a commercial bank. Process of credit creation by commercial banks, it works on two assumptions. First assumption is that all transactions are routed through bank. It simply means that all the payments and all the receipts are through the bank, like say in form of a check or in form of a demand draft, but all transactions are routed through a bank. And second assumption is that not all depositors will come to withdraw their money together. Suppose say 10,000 people have deposited their money into a bank, so all of them will not come together to withdraw their money, and they also withdraw in small amounts. Say maybe at a moment of time your bank account may be having 1 lakh rupees as your deposit, but you need 10,000, so you will withdraw only 10,000 and not the complete amount. So these two important assumptions, actually they are true, practically they are true, and they are not only assumptions, they are the realities, and they have been learned by the banks by their experience. Okay, so it is a truth that, and you can also simply understand that these are the, but only one, this is a assumption where you say all the transactions are routed through bank, but of lately in the modern economies you are finding that most of the transactions are being done through the banks. Okay, so now just keep these two assumptions in mind, and we just take an example. Say person A deposits 1,000 rupees in the bank. Now remember, we had done one term, legal reserve ratio. Okay, that was the total deposits, to the part of the total deposit which cannot be given as loan, it has to be kept as reserve. Say suppose LRR is 10%. So what would bank do with this money? 100 rupees, that is 10% of 1000 is LRR and 900 can be given as loan. Right? Now suppose this 900 loan has been given to person B. See, why has B taken a loan? Because he wants to buy something in the economy or maybe to invest money somewhere. So suppose he wants to buy something from person C. Just remember that bank will always give him loan in form of a check or a demand draft. Like if you happen to go and take a two-wheeler or a car on loan, you will find that bank will sanction the loan and give you a demand draft or a check or simply transfer the money into the account of the dealer, but it will never give you hard cash, right? So B makes this payment to C in form of the check of rupees 900. Now again, if C needs the money at that point of time, he would use in the economy, but our assumption is what? That our transactions are through the bank. It means if C will pay to someone, he will also pay through a check. So he has to simply deposit this money back into the bank, or the check given by B comes back to the bank and it is another deposit of rupees 900. Now again, from this deposit, LRR is kept as rupees 90, and out of this rupees 810 can be given as loan to some other person. Say now the loan has been given to person D. Again, loan is in the form of a check or a demand draft. Suppose D wants to buy something from E. So he'll give a check of rupees 810 to E, and again E will bring the check back to the bank, and this time deposit will be 810, again 81 as LRR, and 729 can be given as loan. This chain will keep on going, keep on continuing. Now just see, the cash which the bank has is only rupees 1000, but the total demand which it had fulfilled in the economy, that is 900 here, then 810 here, 729 here, and it will keep on doing this, right? This is known as credit creation, or the process. This is the process of credit creation by the commercial bank. So commercial bank cannot print currency, but it has a major role to play in the economy, that is the credit creation. Now you must have understood that when we were doing the quantitative tools, then LRR we studied. Okay, so it is very important because it will affect the whole process of credit creation of the commercial bank, right? Most effective method. Okay, now we'll just talk about it in the numerical terms, mathematical terms, how it is framed. Again, I am reminding you, it is a very important process and it can be asked in form of a 6-mark question in your board exams. First, we have to understand money multiplier. Money multiplier is simply defined as the number of times initial deposit is multiplied in an economy. Okay, and then you reach the total credit creation, right? So suppose 1000 rupee have created say 5000 credit, so it would mean that money multiplier is 5 times. How many times the actual cash is increasing in the economy due to the credit creation? The formula for money multiplier is 1 upon legal reserve ratio, or LRR, and total credit creation in an economy is money multiplier into initial deposit. Like the example which we were just doing, in that we took LRR as 10%, so it means LRR is 1 upon 10 upon 100. As you know, 10% would mean 10 upon 100, or you can simply write it as say 1 upon 0.1. 10% is 0.1, or you can say it will be 10 times, right? And the total credit created will be money multiplier, that is 10 into initial deposit, that was rupees 1000, the first deposit into the bank. So it means total 10,000 rupees will be created by the bank, right? And they are including these 1000 rupees also. Okay, so this is another important aspect of the credit creation where you mathematically can calculate the credit creation. It will be used when we are asked to explain this process with the help of a numerical example. So next we will study how this can be demonstrated with the help of a numerical example. We will take the same values which we have taken in our example and we will plot them on the numerical frame. Here it would contain round 1, initial deposits, LRR and loan given and credit creation. Okay, just see round 1, the initial deposit with the bank was rupees 1000, LRR was rupees 100, loan was given for rupees 900. Round 2, initial deposit was 900, LRR was 90, loan given was 810. Third round, deposit was 810, LRR was 81 and loan given was 729. Right? Now we had already done in our mathematical representation that the total credit creation will come out as rupees 10,000. So total credit creation will be 10,000 and total money which we will be transferred to the LRR will be rupees 1,000 and the total loan activities of the bank will be rupees 9,000. Remember, first I have calculated this rupees 10,000. How I calculated it? 1 upon LRR is equal to money multiplier, then money multiplier into initial deposit is equal to total credit creation. This is the initial deposit. This chain will stop when the whole amount of 1000 reaches the legal reserve ratio. Okay, like we have seen that every time it is coming down, right? So the total money when it is 0, then the chain will stop. Actually initial deposit will be only 1000 or LRR, because see these deposits are simply the transfers. I am not writing them again and again. Then I wrote this, the initial deposit 1000 and then I found out the total loan given by the bank. So this you have to remember while you are framing the numerical example, and this is sufficient. You draw around 1, 2 and 3 and after that, after putting the formula, you can simply write the values. So when this process is asked to you or this question is asked to you, explain the process of credit creation with help by the commercial bank, and if it is a 6-mark question, you will explain all the things. You will mention the assumptions of the process, you will mention the mathematical calculation, and you will mention the numerical value, and theoretically you can write that this is simply based on if a person wants to take a loan